Hello everyone and welcome to FiST Chat, the podcast that features discussions on the topics of film, science and technology. My name is Ben Warner and I'm joined once again by my good friend and colleague Steve Kern. How are we today, Steve?
I'm good, Ben. Hello, FiST Chat fans. It's an action-packed, bit of a challenge here today.
Oh, absolutely. We'll get into it very shortly. Just our usual housekeeping. Don't forget our website, www.fistchat.com. You can get all our links there. You can subscribe to our audio via iTunes, RSS, and FeedBurner. Watch this episode and all of our back episodes on YouTube, Vimeo, and Digicosm TV. And make sure to interact with us on Twitter, Google+, and Facebook. We'd love to hear from you, and we do hear from you, so it's a lot of fun. And it's great to have that interaction. And don't forget also our supplementary content, the weekly blogs, photography on Instagram and Flickr. And we've got our polls as well, which we'll get to, but not to our film news bite because that's where it ties in. And that's where the action's really going to kick in. And of course, recommend us to anyone who may be interested. And of course, leave, if you're into it too, just leave some reviews and some comments also on our iTunes podcast link there, because we'd love to hear what all of you guys think. We've got, I guess, so many options available. You can comment to your heart's content wherever it suits you. All right, so let's get into it. We're going to first talk about how social is social media. Now, we've spoken about social media before from various different angles, and we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but there was an interesting article on CNN. Most Americans take breaks from Facebook, and this was a research study that was done about US users of Facebook and how they plan to use the social media juggernaut there in 2013. We'll get to the stats shortly, but quite interesting. I've personally found that I'm taking a very big break from Facebook at the moment, and I'm finding it quite good, actually, apart from, of course, posting all of our FiST Chat links on the FiST Chat page. But what about you, Steve? Do you buy into this? Do you think there might be a bit of a cooling off with this?
It was probably just towards Christmas last year I realised I didn't understand how Facebook worked anymore. And then I actually took a holiday a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And didn't respond when some people, tagged me or whatever, poked me or whatever it is you do on Facebook. Mm. And people wondered what had happened to me.
Oh, well,
I'm alive. I'm here.
Oh, at least they were genuinely concerned for your well-being.
I don't think they were genuinely concerned at all. They were just, concerned that I hadn't responded to their post. But that's another matter. And but I am here. I'm not using Facebook a lot at the moment, except to keep up to date with FiST Chat.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what I found too. I find there's a lack of. I mean, maybe it's different for each person, but it's a lack of social in that social media, because there's a disconnect between what you're actually doing in front of a computer screen and actually going out and talking to people face to face. It's a different interaction, and I've found it's kind of cool when you started using it, but it's sort of not really real, if that makes sense.
Well, I think as some of the Americans are saying, why don't you just pick up the phone? And, in a lot of ways that can be a much more satisfying engagement. Yeah. I mean, for me personally, I have a strange little rule for my Facebook friends. You either have to be overseas or not in easy contact with me.
Yeah. Oh, that would make sense too, because you're not likely to sort of bump into them, are you?
Yeah, I still don't talk to them, but I keep up to date with what they're doing.
All right, let's just have a look at some of the stats. Now, it was a study from the Pew Research Center's Internet and American Life project. This is from the CNN article. Now, they're saying that 27% of Facebook users surveyed in the US plan to spend less time on the site in 2013, compared with only 3% who plan to spend more time. Another 69% of users say they plan to spend the same amount of time on the site this coming year. They also found that 61% of users have taken a break from the service for several weeks or more, and during these breaks, the vast majority of Facebook vacationers don't delete their profiles. Interesting too. And I'm just wondering if is there an etiquette really there that you need to tell people that you're not going to be using it anymore?
Well, you probably should. Otherwise, you get some strange inquiries like mine. But it's a good point, Ben. I mean, it's evolving. I think, the social media and social networking's very fluid, and people wouldn't leave Facebook alone for a long time. Maybe now people realizing that it's, being there all the time it takes a lot of energy.
Yeah, it does. It does. I mean, I guess in some ways it might be easier if it's on a mobile device. I think maybe the most useful feature might be things like messaging, where you're literally having a conversation with someone because, well, as close as you can without actually talking to them. I just had one the other day with someone I haven't spoken to in 4 years because they happened to come across one of my wedding photos that probably Facebook's algorithm popped up at random. We had a nice little chat on using the Facebook messaging app. So it's interesting, but it's just a question of whether you're going to bury your head in that screen or whether you're going to get out and actually talk to people, and whether that's having an impact in general on how we're all interacting with each other.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, this etiquette will evolve, and maybe Mr. Zuckerberg will have a little post that I'm on holidays. So I can go around and rob your place when you're not there. Just not a suggestion. No, don't do that.
Just make sure your privacy is all locked down as hard as possible. So that
I think that is the big question. I mean, if you stop using Facebook for any length of time, you can't obviously say why. So maybe a Facebook vacation is actually the answer.
Yep, absolutely. Alrighty, we might move into our news bites now because our first one's actually quite a big one, and we'll spend a bit more time on it. We're going to delve into the Star Wars versus Star Trek rivalry that's been going on for decades, and it's kind of come into sharp focus recently when, for the first time in both franchises' history, one person is in charge of both of them, which has never obviously happened before, and it kind of, with J.J. Abrams obviously being signed on to direct Star Wars Episode 7, and of course he's been in charge of Star Trek for the last couple of years. Interesting, the question I thought, and this is where maybe we can bring the poll in now, that might be an interesting way to go, because we thought, well, is it still relevant? Is this rivalry still relevant if you've got one guy controlling both of them? On our poll this week, Star Wars versus Star Trek, which side are you on? 56% said Star Trek, 44% said Star Wars. So,
go the Trekkies.
But it's pretty much there and there, I think. I mean, you've probably got equal amounts of fans out there.
Ben, I've got to ask, and I'm not sure about this, does this mean Lucas is no longer writing the Star Wars?
Well, apparently he did an outline for 7, 8, and 9, which they are basing these future scripts on. But then he's not really sort of really involved because, he sold his stake in it. So he's got no sort of financial clout in it at all.
That's unbelievable because, of course, we know what will happen. You won't be able to tell the difference between the two.
Well, the thing is, with the...
let's face it, the last Star Trek was a lot closer to Star Wars.
Well, they were openly saying that. Like Abrams was saying it, his team was saying it, that Star Trek needed a bit more, not Star Wars, it needed more rock and roll in it rather than classical music kind of thing. And that's what they did inject into it. And I think it was a good thing for the franchise because they'd done just so much of it that they couldn't keep going in that same style.
And really up until the last Star Trek, I mean, they were all really just telemovies. 2-hour telemovies. I mean, going the other way, though, let's hope they put a little bit more science into Star Wars and we might get a better product because God knows there's no way in the world that Death Star 2 works. Is there? Can anyone understand it?
Well, maybe there's Death Star 3 maybe or 4. But maybe this is, I've heard it described this way, that it's kind of like with Steve Jobs, where you kind of got these incredible, with Apple, you got these incredible highs and incredible lows. It's the same with George Lucas. We had, the great highs of the first Star Wars films, followed by the lows of the prequels.
Yeah, and he just had them all at once at either end.
Exactly. But in the end, now that he's not in charge and you've got someone else coming in, that maybe what we'll end up getting is just something that's in the middle. That'll be something that's acceptable as a Star Wars film. Because at any rate, this is the first one, whichever first one that they release, that's going to just sell huge amounts of tickets. I mean, it's probably going to have the same kind of anticipation as what maybe Episode 1 did back in 99. Because it's been away for a while, and now they've got the added excitement of the fact that Lucas isn't doing it, and
it's a bit cruel, isn't it?
It is a bit cruel, but it's the facts, really. You've got a potentially exciting filmmaker sort of jumping in. It's the only thing. My question is that Star Trek, for me, the last Star Trek film, as good as it was light on story and character. It took a step backwards in terms of its how cerebral it was, because that's what Star Trek's known for. Let's see how Star Wars pans out, because it doesn't really suffer from that problem. But who knows if it's going to have that same resonance as those original films.
Yeah, well, exactly. But, look, they're both great franchises. I hope that there's not too much creative blending between the two, because they're very different, very different. One's science fantasy and one's science fiction.
Exactly. Oh, well, we get to look forward to the second Abrams Star Trek film this year, so we'll see how that goes and whether that's a precursor of things to come. Alrighty, we'll move on to our science news bite now, and we've been doing our 3D printer thing for the last couple of episodes. We've got a new one here, stem cell ink printed into living dots. Basically, this one's from Discovery News. Lots of people use 3D printers to sculpt plastic, but some are using them to shape cells. A team of researchers at Heriot-Watt University in Scotland, led by Will Shue, has built a printer that can lay down human stem cells in tiny spheres. Printing human cells has been done before with bone marrow and skin. Those types of cells, however, are resilient compared to the more delicate embryonic stem cells that they're talking about here. What do you think about this one, Steve?
Look, this is brilliant. This is, as we always say, this is the future, and I don't think this is the big breakthrough. I think what's amazing about these sorts of big breakthroughs, especially in science and medicine, is because there still needs to be so much testing. The actual uses of it seem a long way away, and they'll be very gradually brought in. But this is huge. I mean, this will allow, wound healing effectively, all sorts of tissue regeneration somewhere down the track. And, it's in terms of science and research as well, it's a huge step to be able to create, tissues in this way. It's just amazing.
And I think it's a window into, what is to come, that we're probably looking at a fairly exciting century for, from a scientific point of view in terms of medical research and all that sort of thing. We might all
be living to, 150 years of age. Maybe not you and me, Ben, but the next generation might be living to 150 years of age before we know it.
Absolutely.
If things keep going the way they have, as we've commented before, it might only be 60 years before people are living to 150.
Yeah. Which is quite amazing, really, given this short amount of time that, because really it's early 20th century when the lifespan started to get longer.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Alrighty, and our final news bite, our tech news bite from The Age. I just thought this one was hilarious. Java block backfires on Apple. It kind of reminds me of, how Microsoft supports its, big customer base. And this is the type of thing that Apple's not used to. They just decide to block something and then it just screws up a whole bunch of other things that they didn't anticipate or think of.
But the big question is, Ben, would Steve Jobs have made the same mistake?
Oh, well, didn't he really set the groundwork for the way Apple responds to these things? It's a closed system. They'll just forge ahead and do whatever they want. And if they leave users behind, they leave them behind. But, at the same time, this is kind of, they're trying to make inroads into the corporate market and get into businesses and things like that. And they depend on, certainty and sort of everything to be the same for a lot longer period of time than what Apple usually trundles things out. And when they do things like this, where they block, obviously it would have been a legitimate security issue.
Oh, indeed. Yeah.
But when it's blocking people, well, it sounds like the ComSec got blocked for a little while, which would have wreaked havoc with traders by the look of it.
If you needed to make a trade, that's no good.
Yeah, there are not many. The Java block did impact the IRS trading platform for people using Macs, but it fortunately, from the sounds of it, it wasn't too widespread.
Oh no, that actually happened to me then. I think I couldn't use it on my iMac, but strangely, it worked on my iPad.
Oh well, there you go. Maybe they want you to buy iPads instead and just go with that in the future.
There you go. Different operating system.
Absolutely.
Solved.
Absolutely.
No web browser, or not an open source Mozilla one.
Well, that's what what apps are for, right?
Exactly.
All right, Steve, we're out of time again, so thanks again for the chat.
Thanks, FiST Chat fans. Don't take a holiday on social media. Tweet us, text us, I don't know, whatever it is you do out there if you don't want to use Facebook.
Absolutely. All right, so that's it for this week's episode, so we'll catch you next week.